Alright, this is going to be the video where we talk about raid bases specifically for Prism Clash and what I would recommend. We're going to be covering a single plot raid base. You can obviously do compound bases and things as such, but we're talking specifically about single plot bases here. And this is the design that I've come up with and I feel is the best. So to start off with, you want to put your base in the contest zones next to other faction teammates. You want to effectively create a sort of faction community or faction compound where you always run other players that can either A, help you, or again, be there if you need help and you're easy to get to or easy to help other people. It makes sense to build next to your faction teammates. The second thing is water. Water is very important for this base design. Now, this is not an exploit. This is fully intended. There's nothing wrong with this base design. But this makes it impossible to C4 raid without starting off with rocket raiding. And the very simple reason for this is the way I have the foundations raised. And we'll get onto the full breakdown of the build later. But in short, I cannot physically jump up anywhere on this build to place C4. I can't build, I can't mantle, I'm spamming space, I can't jump, sprint, or get up anywhere on the side here, other than the stairs here. And if you're raiding, you're simply just going to delete the stairs. Now, if I actually jumped off into the water here, I wouldn't be able to get back up in my own base, which is kind of funny. Obviously, you'll delete this foundation as well. But it is important to note that this base requires you to start off with getting rocket raided for it to actually work. So the next most important thing is doors. There's currently a door exploit where you can phase through doors. So you're probably wondering why I don't actually have any doors on my base, and this is because we do something called edit phasing. Now, I'm going to talk about edit phasing in a little bit after I show the current exploit and why you shouldn't be using doors. It's very important that you do not use doors in a raid base or a PvP base at all because of this exploit. So we're simply going to grab some building pieces here. I've got a few pieces to make this work, but I'll simply grab a floor or two here, and I'll build them up over here, just out here like so. That should be good enough. Actually, we'll delete one of these, and then we will put a door here, like so, and then we will place our motorbike. This is how the exploit works. Actually, I'm going to go repair my bike. That is really annoying. So, give me 2 seconds. And I'm showing the edit phasing here, which is something you can get very fast at if you know what you're doing. And you can also see sort of some of the competitive intricacies of this base design as well, and how it might be very annoying to raid. Alright, so we'll jump up here, and then I'll repair my bike at the bench. We'll jump down over back to that test we're doing. So, and now I'm just going to put my bike down. Oh, I don't know why I can't put it down here. There we go. Just going to put my bike down, and you don't even have to have any speed. You literally just go straight through. That's the best way for me to describe it. It is literally just a phase exploit with the bike, and this isn't just limited to single doors. You can do this on double doors. Now, I'm specifically pointing this out so it gets fixed. Do not abuse this. You will get reported, and the devs will ban you. I'm simply doing this as an example so the devs fix it quicker, because the last time I pointed out the Chaos Cortex exploit with paper dolls, the devs fixed it in 12 hours. Same thing here, I'm showing it so it gets fixed. Also, so you don't use doors, because that is very important. So, again, if I just go through here, I can just phase straight through the door. So, that is very important to note, and why you shouldn't be using doors on raid bases at all. This brings me on to the next point, edit phasing. So if we can't use doors, how are we going to get inside and out of our base? That is where edit phasing comes in. If you don't know what edit phasing is, if I go and press B and I press F, I can relocate a building piece. Upon being in this relocation screen with the build piece, I can walk through that piece I have selected. And this is called phasing. This is completely a normal mechanic in the game. It is not an exploit. It is intended, it has been in the game since CBT 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to edit and press escape to release. And you can get very fast at this. It's almost comparable to Fortnite editing, if you will. It's a bit more clunky, but it is effectively the same premise. You are editing and you're walking through, and you can get really fast at this and make a really secure entrance to your base without using the bugged doors and such. So this is the way I recommend building a PvP base, and it shows sort of some of the intricacies of the base design. So, of course, going up here, I have a bunch of different edits for certain things. Now, this is where some of the base design comes in. So we're going to talk about some of the features here, and then we're going to talk about how I built it. So As you might notice, I have no benches or anything in the open. I have some deviations here and that's about it. And you're probably wondering, where is all of my shit? They're actually in compartments behind walls, and we can phase edit to get to these compartments. Now this is very important because the more compartments we have, the more explosives the raiders will need to get to my shit. So if I had everything in this sort of area here, it would be very easy for the raiders to get in and steal my shit and again loot and take all my stuff. So how do we make that more difficult? We add an extra wall for every single thing that we want to secure. So all of my smelting ores and stuff are in boxes behind this wall. And this is just a blueprint. This is not saying you want to one-to-one copy of what I do. This is something you would want to take inspiration from. It's very important you don't one-to-one copy my base. In fact, after this video, I'm probably going to make some minor tweaks. But use this as a foundation and tips and tricks that you can use to put into your own raid base. So obviously, there's also something very obvious you probably mentioned that is very similar to Rust bases, is honeycombing. The base is built on a 5x5 honeycomb, and is currently the best you can get with the building piece lure. Now, there's something I want to know. If you get the stone fortification specialization that ups your structure limit to 800, you can actually create a 6x6 honeycomb. You have enough building pieces to do that. However, if you do not have the specialization for that, you can only do a 5x5 honeycomb. So that is very RNG dependent. If you get that specialization for the extra building pieces, you are lucky and you do get a whole nother layer of protection. But if you are capped at building pieces like me, this is quite literally the best single base plot build design basis or inspiration you can start off with. I've seen people do like giant cubes, like example that guy over there. That is an easy raid because that is not honeycombed. What honeycombing allows us to do, if you've never played Rust or never watched a Rust video, it means that there has to be a second wall destroyed to get to the next tier. So, for example, if this was just a cube, they would only break one wall and then they could go to the next wall. However, since this is honeycombed, they have to break this wall and then they have to break this wall to get through to the next layer. If this was just a square, they could just go straight through. But since it's honeycombed, there is an extra wall they have to go through each time to get closer to the core, to the middle. And again, as I've mentioned, we also have all of our stuff compartmentalized using phase editing to our advantage to hide things from the raiders and make it more difficult, requiring more explosives. There's probably also another thing that you're probably already thinking of is, what about roof raiding? Can't you just get roof raided? Yes, you can get roof raided, and it's very important you build on a flat area that has no mountains. If you can see a mountain where your base is, you are in the wrong spot. Either build on the mountain or build in the ocean in a flat area. Again, if you are building and you can see a mountain and your base has a mountain in view, you should probably move your base. Roof raiding is a big thing in this game, just like it is in Rust, so you want to make sure you cannot get people on your roof. Now, this base is fully designed to prevent both aero leap and the energy drink from even getting in the base. So, both with aero leap and an energy drink, you cannot get onto the roof of this base, even using bike boost. So, what I'm talking about when using bike boost is when I go onto the slanted roofs here and I place my bike, you could use this as a little bit of a height boost, and then you could use aero leap, and then you could use double jump. That's still not even close to enough height to get up onto the roof. In fact, these are windows as well, so it's even more harder. Basically impossible to roof raid this base, provided you build it in the correct area. The other important thing to this base is, again, placing it in water, like I mentioned at the start of the video, where they actually can't C4 raid it unless they start with RPG raiding. So they have to effectively break one of these pieces to allow them to stand up here and then C4 raid. The other point of these outer walls and outer slants is to protect our foundations. Because you're probably thinking, couldn't they just foundation wipe the base and everything above will just drop down? You're absolutely correct, and that is why we have these slanted roofs here, to add another layer to protect the foundations. So we've got these outer foundations, then those slants, and then we have the inner foundations. It is also very important to obviously build out of concrete once you get to that tier, but we are currently in phase 1 of the Prism Clash, so we can only build from maximum stone. We've covered a few important things now. Covered the fact that we're in water, so we can't get C4 rated off to start with. Covered that we're in a 5x5 honeycomb, 6x6 if you have the increased build limit. We have the inverted roofs. We are using edit phasing to get in and out of our base because doors are exploitable currently. And we are also using compartments to waste the Raiders' explosives even more. The next most important thing is how I use edit phasing. So, if you're probably wondering how do I navigate through this maze, it could just be muscle memory, but there's a very important trick I use to actually navigate where my stuff is. I use pieces of furniture to indicate what's behind them. So, if I want to get to the roof of my base, I put newspapers here, and that is my indicator to get to my roof access. And I'm not using steers or anything because that is a little bit basic and a little bit easier to raid. Again, by using this design, I know where my roof access is by using that small indicator. And over here, we have a whiskey bottle. The whiskey bottle indicates, I believe, actually kind of forgot, my cooking. I'm an idiot. So whiskey indicates my cooking, and I've got my cooking boxes here and my cooking station. So again, I'm just edit phasing to get into these compartments. And of course I would do the same for the furnaces. Currently I don't have the furnaces covered up. It's a little bit annoying with furnaces. But again, same thing with furnaces, and that's indicated by this toy here, the furnace layer toy thing. And behind these ones is the furnaces and smelting boxes, and that's got all of that stuff in it there. Next to that, we have got the crafting benches, which is actually a little bit more difficult to get to. But we go through the roof access, we jump up one tier like so. Oh. And this one's a little bit more muscle memory based, but we effectively grab this wall here, edit phase, and now I'm at my disassembly bench, and I have my disassembly mats here. I edit around this, it's sort of like a semicircle, or is a semicircle actually, or a hexagon, and then we are in the next tier with my weaponsmithing, or weapon crafting. Then we go around this tier again. Nope, this way, I'm an idiot. And then, I don't know why there's no wall there, that's actually my bad. There should also be a wall here too. And then we go into the next edit phase, and then we have our supply bench, like so. So that is sort of how my edit phasing works in my base. And I can just, if I want to get down from there quickly, I can just edit drop down. The other important thing with this base design is, again, as I mentioned, if you do somehow get roof rated, we have taken that into consideration. As you may have noticed, there are half walls in some areas. This allows us to build another floor at half the height, which makes it more difficult for roof rating, which means they have to break through more layers than they would. So they have to currently break through 1, 2, 3 layers just to get to the top floor. And that makes it, again, a little bit harder if they do manage to roof rate. In theory, where you build it, you shouldn't be able to get roof rated. So that sort of covers the basic outline of the build. We have a 5x5, inverted roofs, again, good for cover if you're shooting from the top, which would make it also impossible for aero leap and double jump. We'll use slants and built-up foundations in water to make it impossible to C4 raid to start off with. You would delete the stairs again, provided you're getting raided. And secondly, we are using compartments and build phasing to make it harder for the raiders and more aids to attack. Again, also mentioning that door exploit, you don't want to use doors in PvP right now. It is highly exploitable. That covers pretty much the entire base design. There are some other small tricks in here, and again, use this as inspiration. Don't copy my build one-to-one. My deviations, for example, are actually behind some of these inner compartments here. Simply hiding stuff behind these compartments is going to make it a lot more annoying for your raiders. They're going to have to waste a lot more explosives than they would like, and explosives are a lot harder to get in this server and a lot more to blow stuff up after the recent explosive changes. Now, there's also something very important I want to mention here, and that is the nutcrackers. These are currently one of the best deviations when it comes to protecting your base. These things will smoke you. I have come across nutcrackers and they will destroy you, and they're pretty annoying to deal with. And if you're wondering, nutcrackers and deviations do not have HP, so you can't actually kill them. You have to destroy the securement unit to destroy a deviation. There's also something I want to mention here that is very important. If you get raided, you will never lose your deviations unless it's a prism deviation that is getting secured. You will never have to worry about losing these deviations right here. However, if you have boxes that get looted, your stuff will first go to the vaults. As we can see, if we go to our terminal and press G, once your vault is full, these slots here, I think there's like 64 slots or something, or 32 slots, your loot will drop on the ground for other players to pick up. So you have effectively some safety materials that will get put in the boxes here, but anything that is in excess and can't be fitted into the vaults will be able to get looted by the raiders. So keep that in mind, and you want to obviously make sure that your loot is hidden. So For example, I've got my loot kind of all spread out. It's not in one area. I really wouldn't recommend keeping your loot in one area. So I've kind of got my scraps next to my disassembly. I've got my bench stuff. It's all kind of separated nice and neatly. Again, we've got like smelting stuff obviously over here. So it's all separated. It makes it much harder for raiding and looters if they did manage to get to my stuff. And again, any excess that is from your vault storage will be lootable by the enemy. But again, deviations themselves will never be able to get looted by the enemy. Deviations will, I believe, go to your mail. I can't quite remember. I can prove this because I have raided someone before and I destroyed one of their securement containers and I did not get the deviation. So I would never worry about losing deviations. That is completely fine. The only stuff you would lose is your general materials if it exceeds your vault threshold. Now, there is also something else I want to quickly mention. You don't lose anything on your player that is important. So, for example, I keep my calibration blueprints, my main weapons and gear on me at all times because I will never lose that stuff on death. That's one of the rule sets of Prismverse, which is really nice. So all your important shit, your calibration blueprints, your Stardust maybe even, and of course your weapons, keep that on your player inventory. It is going to help you out in the long run. Alright, now that we've done sort of the main breakdown of the base, the tips and tricks, how I achieve certain things, and things you might want to take inspiration from, is the full building process. Now, it is a bit of a V1 in this building process. This was recorded in my first stream, and it is a full, extended, uncut build process of how I design things, and if you want to watch that and understand how I did certain things, you can. So there's attached at the end of the video, but if you got what you needed from this video, you can probably dip here. But if you want to watch the full build process, again, that is going to be at the end of the video here for you to watch. I hope you learned something. I hope you sort of picked up on how I like to design my raid bases. And yeah, I'll see you guys in future iterations of raid-based designs, raid-based gameplay, raiding. Again, this scenario has been fantastic so far. I've seen a lot of people shitting on this scenario, a lot of PvEers, and I don't think a lot of people realize how bad the Evolution School PvP scenario was. This scenario right here is the PvP scenario the game should launch with. It is quite literally 10 times better than what we had as a PvP main. Any PvP player can attest to this and agree with me that this scenario has given us more PvP in a couple days than we've had in our whole Evolution School experience, and it has been a fucking blast. That said, it is important you work in a faction and you don't play solo. You need to be using your faction chat to communicate with your faction mates, and they will, again, share coordinates. You share coordinates with them. They will tell you where bases are to raid or defend to contribute to your faction. If you're playing this faction solo or as PvE, you're really not helping out your team, and it's only going to lead to you losing. In my server, we have a very competitive scene, and we have good players on both sides, both the Rosetta and the Mayfly, and we have a very close score as well. So please, I recommend whatever you do not play solo, play with your team, use your faction chat, even set up a faction Discord is what we have done on our server, which helps us communicate with each other much easier than just using game chat. Again, I will see you guys in the next video. Enjoy the building process. Peace out.
have you learned? I was programmed to beat you. you learned? I was programmed to beat you. The same mistakes. I was programmed to beat you. Humans, what have you learned?